Does the punishment fit the crime? Donald Trump will have 30 days to appeal the ruling in a New York civil fraud case that accused him of overstating the value of his real estate properties. Once the former president and others are served, the countdown will then begin. On Friday, New York Judge Arthur Engoron finalized the judgment and interest payments against Trump and his companies, ordering them to pay at least $454 million. And State Attorney General Leticia James says she's prepared to seize Trump's buildings if he's unable to pay the fine.
If he does not have funds to pay off the judgment, then we will seek, judgment enforcement mechanisms in court, and we will ask the judge to seize his assets.
Part of Trump's appeal will argue that there were no victims, since all of the lenders impacted by his financial statements were repaid with interest. Plus, the AP found that of 12 other reported cases brought under the same New York anti-fraud statute that received serious penalties, Trump's is the only one without an alleged victim or financial loss. In his ruling, the judge wrote this: timely and total repayment of loans does not extinguish the harm that false statements inflict on the marketplace. Indeed, the common excuse that everybody does it is all the more reason to strive for honesty and transparency and to be vigilant in enforcing the rules. Here, despite the false financial statements, it is undisputed that defendants have made all required payments on time. The next group of lenders to receive bogus statements might not be so lucky. My next guest co-authored this Wall Street Journal op-ed with Jeb Bush under the heading "Elon Musk and Donald Trump Cases Imperil the Rule of Law." Joining me now is co-founder of Palantir and managing partner of 8VC, Joe Lonsdale. Joe, thank you for being here. I'm curious, your co-author, Jeb Bush, no fan of Donald Trump. Why did he feel compelled to weigh in on this?
You know, Michael, I've never given Donald Trump a cent either. I love America. I've built a lot of businesses in this country. I love building. I love investing here. And this is very scary. I see the government weaponized against my friend Elon Musk. And listen, I don't love Donald Trump, but I was just with a bunch of my business friends who don't love him either. And all of them thanked me for writing this. They said, Joe, this is scary. What they're telling me is that if I speak up, if I run for office, they're going to come and they're going to find a huge way to penalize me for something that's just absolutely ridiculous. Like, everyone knows Donald Trump probably didn't do this perfectly, but they know that dozens of others didn't either. And it's obvious he's being penalized an insane amount of money because he's Donald Trump. And that's not how America is supposed to work.
Okay, you know the arguments in opposition to this being quote-unquote victimless. The idea is that he inflated his value, therefore was given preferential interest rates. Even if he repaid them, he took advantage of those banks. You would say what to that?
I would say that there's no one else in this country who would ever be fined even $50 million for this. And fining him $400 million for this or whatever it is clearly because she's trying to get Donald Trump. And it's the same thing with what's happening to Elon right now. It's activist judges who are saying if you speak up, if you're a target of our political party, of our ideology. I mean, Elon has the DOJ going after him. He has the Labor Department going after him. He has these Fish and Wildlife people delaying things for months for silly reasons, making him write book reports, to them. And the whole system right now is being weaponized, and it's scary, and it's wrong. This is what happens in emerging markets. It's not what happens in great countries like America, and we need it to stop.
So I read aloud from Judge Engoron's opinion on this issue that you and I are now discussing. Were there real victims? And he says it doesn't wash if you say, well, everybody does it, and why is this guy getting singled out? One of the things that the judge made clear in his opinion is that it kind of necessitates baking into these type of calculations and negotiations the fraud factor. And that if someone like Trump gets reined in, it makes it a more equitable system for everyone who follows. How about that argument?
Michael, so you have something that it's like everyone's driving over the speed limit. In a communist country like China, everyone's always guilty of breaking the law. In America, at some point, we have a million regulations. I don't think Trump necessarily handled this perfectly. It's not a $400 million fine. It's like basically what happens in these countries when you have a regime take over that's going after its enemies is you weaponize it and you penalize people in ridiculous ways. This is an obvious example of that. This is why it's scary to my friends who do business who don't even like Trump, because it's the $400 million fine for something where there's no victims is obviously a weaponization of government, and everyone knows on its face. And again, these are my friends. A lot of them send me emails screaming about Trump. They're sounding like Bob Costas just does, who was just on. They hate him, but they're in business, and they know that penalizing that much in business is clearly weaponization. And so to me, seeing this is not just against Trump, it's against all these other people. It's not how the country is supposed to work.
Okay, let me try one more time. This is now my third argument trying to play devil's advocate with you, because you said something about driving. There's a law professor named Oren Kerr, and he used a driving analogy. He said it's like if you're driving drunk and you don't hurt anybody, but you were still driving drunk, you got to get punished because the next time you might hurt somebody. How about that?
I think driving drunk kills a lot of people and is a horrible thing, and this thing is not equivalent to something that's a horrible thing that kills a lot of people. You know, the governor of New York, even on the left, made it clear that this is something that was specifically because it was Donald Trump. And if you want to penalize him a little bit for this, to kind of like slap his hand because he's Donald Trump and just show others as an example, that would be one thing. If you find him $20 million, I would have said, oh, that's kind of ridiculous, but I wouldn't have written the piece. But if you try to find someone enough to hurt him, to punish him, that's just not how this is supposed to work with a victimless crime.
Joe, I'm playing devil's advocate with you because here last week I said it would have had more credibility if it were $11 million. The fact that it was 355 just made it incredible, frankly, and well, enough. Thank you. I got to roll, but I appreciate you being here. Let's see what you're saying on social media. Catherine, what do we have? Via Twitter? I'm not sure. Trump is wrong about his victimless crime. If banks knew his real values, they could have charged him more interest, therefore they lost money. Right, Rodney, that's exactly the point that I made. I mean, there's a twofold argument. One is to say that he was able to take advantage, not of the front door interest rate, but the back door interest rate because of the value that he was claiming. He got preferential treatment because of the net worth premised on the value of the real estate. The second is that you got to rein this in because otherwise there's just too much of it in the industry. But I've made myself clear. 355 million is a crazy number. And I'm going to tell you something else that a lot of you are not going to want to hear. It helps him politically. And the only thing that will help him more is if Leticia James should now make a move on the Trump Tower. Oh my God, that would lock up the election for him.